Productions on the track.
What's up, everybody? This is Case Study QB, and we are in the Progressive War Room. I'm here with my buddy, Kinverly Dicupe. Kinverly Dicupe is the co-chair of the Democratic Socialist of America in Rhode Island, and she is now currently running as for the state legislator. How are you doing, Kinverly?
Hey, thank you so much for having me on. I'm doing decent.
Yeah. I was
I'm living.
excited. Say that again.
I'm living,
You're living.
surviving.
Surviving. Oh, girl, we gotta get your spirits up. We gotta get you ready to rock and roll because you're about to be the state legislator. I was so excited when you DM me and said, "Hey, I'm running," because I know I don't even know how long ago it was. If it was 6 months, a year ago by now, I don't even know how much time has passed since I last interviewed you. I saw you first interview with the Real News Network, and I was like, "Oh, this will be an interesting person to talk to about just the Progressive War Rooms about electoral politics and how I want to talk to you about how the Democratic Socialists can intertwine with that." And now you're running for office. So the first question I want to ask you is, what made you finally decide to run?
Well, I had been thinking about running for a while, but I was just kind of waiting for an opportunity to open up. And then throughout the pandemic, I was still doing, organizing work. And I just realized that like my rep is a very quiet rep. I've never ever seen her around. Then when I was, trying to contact her throughout the pandemic, her phone line was literally disconnected. So you really couldn't get in contact with her.
Wow.
And I was like, I've never seen this woman campaign ever. I'm like, what is going on? And, looked on the internet. There's not much there because she hasn't done much really. And so I decided, maybe this cycle I should run. A lot of other good progressives are running as well. So it's not like, I'm like one of a few. I'm like one of many who are running in Rhode Island. And I don't know, that brings a certain level of comfort because I've never ran before. And I didn't think that I'd be the type of person to run, especially like as a younger person. Like when I was in high school, I didn't really think that I'd be the type of person to be in politics. It wasn't until Bernie came along that I started really getting into politics. And there's a lot of fear that comes with choosing to run for office and like the type of attention that puts on you. And you don't want to disappoint people. You don't want to disappoint yourself. So there's a lot of fear, especially when you know the system isn't made for you. I don't know, but for me, you're muted.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. So let me ask you about that. So basically, how do you feel? You said you don't want to disappoint, other people running. How do you feel about anybody elected as a Democratic Socialist or in any capacity since we last talked or since Bernie ran?
Locally or nationally?
Either one, whatever you want to take, or both.
I mean, like, we've made strides, with the Bernie run, AOC, the squad, local progressives, all across the United States. Here in Rhode Island, we also got quite a few progressives elected. I think the problem is, we do need to elect more progressives, but we need to utilize the progressives we have in office now more effectively. And I think we're starting to see that the establishment is very good at forcing people out of mass politics. So you're seeing more progressives do this whole thing of like, we're negotiating behind scenes with the leadership and Joe Biden and whoever the hell else, and, you guys just don't know that we're really fighting for you, but, it's closed doors, so we can't tell you what's happening, but actually we're really fighting for you. And that's a strategy that's a graveyard for Medicare for all and all that type of stuff. Yeah. And as long as the establishment can convince you to do that type of politics, to get, do the private backroom nonsense where they have all the power because they're the ones who have the institutional power, you don't get to ever utilize your power, which is the people. And I think exactly. A lot of progressives also get afraid of the narratives that the media runs against them. If I call a lot of people to this action, or if I do this, the media is going to say, I'm attacking this person, or, a negative narrative that they just often don't want to deal with. And we see this here locally where people think, the way that you get to Medicare for all is that, you play footsies with the establishment to the extent that you can, and then you get your little wins in there. Till you get enough progressives to pass the thing. And it's just like, I just don't think that strategy is going to work. And it's a strategy that's going to maybe potentially work in 200 years. Because that's how slow we're going.
So, I mean, we don't, I 100% agree with you. I'm so glad to hear you say that. So my question is, what are you going to do differently? What are you going to do?
Well, I'm definitely going to fight for the policies. I do want to run on some, Medicare for all is my number one. I haven't come up with my highlight list yet, but, I support the Green New Deal, all those types of things. But I guess I do want to practice more, mass politics and not do the types of things that I feel cement the establishment's power, which is like, vote for the leadership, even though they're not giving you anything besides giving you threats that if you don't vote for them, you're not going to sit on the committee. When you play those games, all it does is that it like tanks your own popularity, because people feel like you're not really going to fight for them if you're playing footsies, and it doesn't breed confidence when you go out there and tell people like, I'm fighting for you, but I just can't tell you how I'm fighting because it's in the back doors. You know what I'm saying?
100%. Totally agree with you.
Just that type of strategy. I just really want to build a strategy with the grassroots that where it's not just like I'm a legislator who's like single-handedly fighting for Medicare for all and making my own decisions just by myself, but like making decisions with organizations and the organizers who knock doors for me, right? Those types of things, because I think the big fight right now on the left is that we do all believe in Medicare for all of these things, but the strategy is different. And I feel like the strategy of getting behind closed doors, voting for the leadership because you don't really, want to take on that fight, and, letting the leadership use you to like launder the party's reputation.
Yo, you're saying everything. You're tickling all my fancies. It's like, I want you to run for the House. Are you running for the House or the state, right? But let me ask you this question, because this is something I brought up, I think, on my Political Junkie show. I might invite you. It'll be great to have you on my Political Junkie show. I don't know if you're available Mondays at 8. Yeah, we got to get that set up. Matter of fact, this Monday, let me know if we'll talk after. Okay. So I asked last time, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I was like, I saw a clip, I posted on my Twitter account of Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it was Matt Gaetz, and she was just talking to him about Kevin McCarthy, he might not get my vote. He's going to have to do this, this, and this to really get my vote. And I'm like, yo, can our progressive left learn something from the crazy radical right or whatever? And I don't know. I feel like was I crazy if we had a progressive I'm not even going to name any of the squad members, but if we had somebody that was saying openly, it was just her and Matt Gaetz. I don't think they were on like an independent show or something, but they were saying openly, Nancy Pelosi's not going to get my vote until she puts on the floor Medicare for all. And she's one person, but guess what? That made noise. That was on MSNBC that I clipped. It was on CNN that I clipped. So people right now are so disheartened by electoral politics. And what I mean by people, the left, there's I have a lot of colleagues and people that I interact with that are just like, forget electoral politics. Let's just focus on building community service, mutual aid, which I love. I want that to happen as well. But I feel disheartened because I think that there's a circle, and I don't know if I'll be able to bring up this graphic, a circle of change that I have that I encompasses electoral politics, the grassroots, or AKA the people, and then independent media, left media. Those three things have to work in synergy. And if we do that, we can get change, I believe, right? But a lot of the people think electoral politics, which is over on this side of the equation, is just not working. So what do you think about that?
Yeah,
Tough question, right?
I'll start out with, the squad isn't just one person. I mean, they're named the squad because they're supposed to be working together for these,
Mhm.
policies, Medicare for all these things. I mean, their whole branding is basically, together. So I do think that sometimes it bewilders me when they don't work together as much as I feel you should, because one of you is not going to have all the power. But the whole point is that you as a squad, can move the narrative. It just kind of bewilders me, and I feel like acting in that way allows the establishment more power than they should have, because you have you have decent little numbers, enough to make a splash, to change narratives. And the squad members aren't just any like old Congress people. They're some of the most popular politicians in America, especially in like, the coast where a huge portion of Americans live. So
Mhm.
it's like you're more popular really than like 99% of Congress. That gives
Mhm.
you a lot of sway over the people and a lot of reach. So it's not just like you're just five, you're also five of the most popular people in America.
100%.
And that's
Yeah.
something that's power. I think well, I've, and this is just something I've seen. I feel like oftentimes people on the left will run for something. They'll try very hard to get power. And when they do amass power, they're afraid to use the power that they've amassed.
Mm.
Um, because, it may not be convenient for their next run, supposedly. Like, the
Mhm.
way that things are going, where it's like, if you don't, I mean, I've heard things of like, if you fight for Medicare for all at the wrong time, then that's going to hurt Medicare for all. You got to
Yeah.
fight for Medicare for all at the right time. I'm like,
Mhm.
see,
Mhm.
folks, just like stop basically covering what is cowardice as like a type of like
Yeah.
political virtue. um
Yeah.
like, there is no right time to fight for what's right. You fight for what's right
Absolutely
when you
right.
believe it.
Mhm.
And I just think that, a lot of what politicians sometimes think is like very intelligent political maneuvering doesn't come
Mhm.
off that way to the people. And
Mhm.
that's who it needs to come off like genuine to.
Mhm.
Like, people become so calculated sometimes that it just like they almost kill their own like charisma and popularity trying to like really play the game. And it's like, you don't need to do that. The whole point of electing you was that you were not going to do that. You were not going to play footsies. And I just think that also coming out there and talking about like, where everyone's united around the same issues. No, we're not united around the same issues. Some of us want healthcare for everyone, and some of us want a scam that keeps people going bankrupt. And I think by progressives going out there like the squad and telling the American people we're all united, we're all exactly united around the same issues, like, it obfuscate what's really like going on, which is you're fighting for power within the party. That's
Mhm.
And you should make that case to the people. Like, go out there and tell the people, what party do you want to be? Do you want to be the party of FDR, or you want to be the party of Bill Clinton?
Mhm. Mhm.
Go out there and make that case. Instead, it's like, no, we're all united, and that's just a narrative that is only going to benefit the establishment once they come around to destroy you, because you've been going out there not really sounding the alarms, doing a fake
Yeah.
unity where they stab you in the back and you pretend they're your friend, is
Yeah.
just like, it's bewildering. And people keep saying it's a strategy. We're working this way because it's an intelligent strategy that takes time. And I'm just like, folks, this is not a strategy. Folks are just scared. Like,
Let me just throw at you, because again, I hear everything you said. There's people that I know that would be cynical, like, she's just gonna get in. Kimberly's just gonna get in there and she's gonna pull a what's his name, man, right, the guy that just recently, Jamal Bowman, who was about to get, the DSA was about to like kick him out the group, and people are cynical, and I can't blame them. You can't blame them, right? All the type of promises. AOC said, I don't care if I'm a one-term congresswoman, but that 175K is sweet. Once you get in there, you go from making a waitress salary or tips to making six figures.
And not just that, is the fame. I mean, she has a lot of stands.
Yeah. So
I mean,
do you know how much the state legislator make? I'm just curious.
Oh, we make nothing. It's like 15,000 a year.
What? So you got to keep working it. 15,000?
Yeah, like I got to work my regular job. It's like people think like, oh my gosh, if you pay a legislator that little amount of money, then they're not going to be corrupt, right? But what it does is it makes sure that only very wealthy people can actually run for these positions, because everybody else is going to have to work like 3 jobs plus their state legislator job.
No, I think there's a limit, because going 15,000 is way too little, and 175K. I heard recently Kyle Kalinske said he wouldn't mind paying 300K if that would prevent Congress people in the House and in the Senate from having stocks. Like, that would be the deal. Like, no, you can't have any stocks. You can't have any interest in, the legislation or that insider trading. And I think that's even too much money. Like, now, and if anything, I would have a stipend for, I understand that you need a place to stay in DC. And then, of course, you need your house or wherever in your district, have a stipend or something like that. But 175K, how can you relate to the people if you're making 175K? That's, shoot, I don't know if that's 10,000 a month. I have to calculate it out, but that's way more than I can even imagine right now. You know what I'm saying? What you think?
Well, I think a lot of what's causing the cynicism I feel on the left is, I will say, it's like the condescension who I feel is coming from people who are at the top of the left wing, like political, like circles or whatever. The people who are like, for some reason, there's a lot of political influencers now. So people who just have a lot of Twitter followers, people who are like writing books and they just know the journalists. And, the top of what I call the left wing, I feel, has been very condescending to like the grassroots, especially around, I feel like a lot of what the people at the top of the left want to do now is protect people's like reputation who we've elected, as opposed to pushing for the policies. And I think a lot of that has to do with who's at the top of, left-wing organizations and stuff. It's like professionals. Many of them are people whose moms and dads are lawyers, doctors. These people have never, their economic insecurity is a little bit different from someone who like grew up in the projects. And I feel oftentimes that these folks drive a strategy that it's always a delayed strategy, because they're comfortable already. So they can afford to say things like, listen, right now is not the time to fight for Medicare for all. We got to fight for, like, actually, if you fight for Medicare for all right now, you might actually destroy the movement. And it's like, how does this make sense? It only makes sense if you're trying to protect people and not enact the policy. And I do think that, a lot of left-wing folks have been, thrown out by the mainstream media, that now that, we've elected people, they're like many celebrities. I feel like there is kind of a little bit of like, we got to protect what we've built, which is fine. We do have to protect what we've built, but we need to go above and beyond that in order to get the things that we promise to people at the doors.
So let me ask you, are you ready for the vitriol that's going to come your way? And what can you do at the state level? I know you talked about Medicare for all and a couple other things. But can you do that at the state level? Rhode Island is
Yeah,
super
we can.
small, so go ahead, take it away.
We can do it at the state level. We just got to make sure that the way we write the bill, a lot of the federal money that we get to run the current healthcare system, goes to pay for Medicare for all, essentially at the state level. But it is true that without the federal government, um, it's hard to do. Like, no matter what, a state, if to run a Medicare for all state, you know, program, you need federal government, like the federal government's money.
Okay.
There's no
Because
other way.
Vermont tried to do it, and then I think the governor got cold feet or something. He had some excuse that it was too much money, and they passed it. They actually passed it, but the governor had to implement it, and he never did. Are you familiar with that situation?
I'm a little bit familiar from
Okay.
it. From what I understand, a lot of it collapsed because they couldn't get that federal money. It was like a voucher that, because the president needs to give a voucher
Yeah,
in
yeah.
order to allow,
For
which
Medicare, single
essentially would
payer
mean
system.
that
Mhm.
the federal money that is already paying for your shitty healthcare now would be
Yeah, yeah,
allowed to be paid for, an actual Medicare for all program. And it's
yeah.
ridiculous. I always tell people, I'm like, listen, the money is not the problem. Okay. Why can we not run a system that's cheaper to run than the one we currently are running?
Yeah, 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 100%.
Um, it's just about making sure, because they're going to make it very hard. And I mean, Joe Biden has said, he's not in favor of Medicare for all. So it's in the air whether he would give Rhode Island a voucher if we were to pass a Medicare for all program. But you can do basically all the things that progressives tend to run in Congress. You can do it at a state level. Raising the minimum wage. Personally, I feel like 15, that was like 10 years ago. Nobody can live on 15 at this point. Like, we're fighting for something that you're still going to be poor for, even if we get it done. I think we need to bump this thing all the way to 25, especially in states like mine, New England. It's very, very expensive to live here. And we have a huge housing crisis, meaning there's few homes and it costs a lot. And,
Yeah.
the only way you could afford it is like 25 minimum wage, honestly.
So let me ask you, what do you tell somebody that says, "Hey, Kimberly, you're one person. I know you said there's other progressives on their way running right now. What can you get done? How long is the first term? 2 years or 4 years? What is it?
It's two, I believe.
2 years. Like, Kimberly, what can you do in 2 years?
I mean, that really depends on how many of us get elected this upcoming year. But I also think it depends on how we organize. Which is, are we going to go in there, vote for the leadership, get on committees, and, play as much footsies as we want? Or are we going to go in there, because the way things work at the state houses, if you're at the leadership doesn't like you, your bill will never see the light of day. So you can write as many bills as you want, and they will never let that thing come up, ever. But I think that because we actually have, organizations and regular people who, are organizing, I think we can put a lot of pressure doing direct tactics, like, go to these people's homes, honestly, do a whole office sit down, get regular folks. Right now, there's, Cynthia Mendes and Matt Brown are having a sleep out. They're sleeping out in tents outside of the state house, to put pressure
Okay.
on the governor and the Democratic supposed
You
leadership.
think that's going to be effective?
It's already been effective. They've already come out with a plan that's wholly and not going to do
The
anything.
people
But
sleeping out or the people in power?
in power. So they've already come out with a
Interesting.
plan.
Okay.
Which, let me tell you, they wasn't going to come out with anything. The only
Okay.
reason they came out with their three petty plan is because of the pressure that's being built outside, and because they're getting more national attention. And I have personally joined them as well outside. I think it's incredibly important. Like, I honestly feel that this is the way you pressure these people. You put power, you bring power right to their door, and you play no games. You let them know exactly what you're there to do, and that if you have to, go to political war and defeat them, that's exactly what you're gonna do. But don't go in there, acting like you're there to be people's friend. You're not there to have a friendship. Like, cool if you get friends, like that's great. But you came in there with an agenda, and I do think that those type of tactics is what needs to happen more. But those type of tactics, because they put so much pressure on the leadership, there's always blowback. So, a lot of the blowback from some of the upper class liberals in our state is like, well, look, their tents are really nice. Do the homeless even have nice tents like this? And it's just like, are you out there sleeping? What are you doing right now for the homeless besides
Wow.
tweeting from your Mac computer right now?
Wow.
All right,
Nice tents.
you're doing nothing. You're tweeting on behalf of the leadership that has these people sleeping outside.
Yeah, I love that you're talking about organizing because I think that's something that we're lacking in the House. Definitely, I think what you said reminded me of when Cory Bush, slept out on the Capitol steps, and that got extended the moratorium, but a lot of people were saying that was performative and that she should have stayed out there. Now, it is performative, right? Of course it is. That's the
All
whole point of
protests
it.
are performative. Let
Yeah,
me just say that.
exactly.
It's honestly, that's
But
just
I
the
think
truth.
their qualm was that she didn't say, okay, I'm staying out here until you guys cancel house debt. Something like more severe than just a moratorium that didn't even last that long. It wasn't that effective. Like it might have lasted, I don't know if it was a couple of weeks or a couple more days or whatever, but it wasn't a lasting effect. What do you think about that, Kimberly?
I do think there is some point to that. Like I said, I think all protests are performative. So that criticism is always like a wash because it's like the whole protest is a theater. Like, let's stop. But I will say that to me, it's very curious the way they chose to do that and the way Cory Bush chose to do that protest.
What you mean?
Because there was only a few legislators sleeping outside. You
Mm-hmm.
you folks have millions of followers. You could have tagged up with organizations, use your Twitter, and tagged up with organizations, use your campaign like funding to like fly people out to the White House and have a huge like mass sleep out. Like you have that reach and you have the money and the connections to do that. But why wasn't that would have put way more pressure on Joe Biden to actually do something that's permanent instead of like signing this moratorium that he knew was gonna get destroyed 2 seconds in, which is why he signed it.
Man, I
That
can't
to me is
convince you
what
to
I'm
run for
talking
the
about.
House. I can't convince you to run for the House. No, I'm just
No,
kidding.
no, no,
But,
no, no, no.
oh man,
That's a lot of
maybe in the
pressure, but that's what
okay,
I'm
nah,
talking about when I say,
yeah.
there are we need to choose which way we want to organize. And
Mm-hmm.
to me, it was great that they did that, but to me, the question still remains of why didn't you include the people? I just don't understand.
Yo, with Democrats, I keep hearing that. Like when it comes to their messaging, right? You got the Build Back Better bill, and what you just mentioned with the being on the outside, and that people have millions of Twitter followers, and you're not going out to your followers and saying, "Hey, we need 50,000 people on the Capitol Mall or by the Washington Monument, and we're going to have
Oh
a
yeah.
march for Medicare for all." We're going to go to West Virginia and meet up with West Virginians and give the microphone to the
That's
people.
why haven't they gone
Yeah,
to us?
yeah,
That's another mystery to me that's just like
yeah,
go down there and put pressure right in his hometown. Like that
yeah.
when you go into another politician's district, let me tell you, that's when they know that you're serious. Like any politician will tell you that when another politician walks into your hometown, that's a lot of pressure because if that politician is more popular than you in your hometown, it's gonna be trouble for you.
Yeah, no, totally. I want anybody watching this, please give some love. What's your website? And we're not finished yet, but I just want you to throw out some information on how people can reach you real quick.
Just on my Twitter right now,
Mhm.
Instagram.
Mhm.
My Twitter is K Dicupe, and my Instagram is just Kimberly with a dot between the R and the L.
Okay, got you. So let's get back to organizing, right? So you were one of the few people that I did a fact finding mission on the People's Gauntlet. Now I don't know if you've seen the website or seen the evolution of the People's Gauntlet at all, but we have 4 candidates who have completed all 5 gauntlets, and they're rocking and rolling. One person right now, actually, I plan in the future we're going to have a state avenue, state legislation, governor and state. Right now we don't. We're just focused on the House and Senate. But I have one person, Wilson, Daniel Wilson, who he was running for the House, but now he's converted to running for the state. He did one gauntlet, and I said, okay, you could do 4 gauntlets and not the foreign policy one, and I'm going to add him to the site. So he's like unofficially a state member on the website. And hey, maybe we could chat and we could work something out too. That'd be cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, so I talked to you about that, and I'm up to a point where it's time to build out the infrastructure for volunteer. And I was listening back to the interview we did a while ago, and I remembered that you were the field coordinator for, I forgot the person's name, for a couple months for
Sambo.
For a
Sambo,
campaign.
yeah.
So I was like, great, you might be the perfect person to again get some advice on how should I build this out. So organizing, Kinverly, we talked about Van last time and how hard Van can be as a progressive to get the information. You have to pay a lot of money. So tell me, if you had a dream app that you can use as a field coordinator, this is what I have so far. Maybe we can build out our own van, which would be free, maintained by progressives, so that we don't have to worry about paying that much money. And that's a disadvantage if the Democrats doesn't give it to you. I was thinking about volunteers, right? Giving them points for every door that they knock, every phone bank that they do. And when they build up these PG points, is what I'm going to call it right now, they'll be able to cash it in for, I don't know if it'll be t-shirts or special badges. They might get a super volunteer of the week or different badge. I'm this still being built out. I'm still kind of building this thing out. What do you think about that?
All right. I mean, that sounds great. Okay. My main thing would be, a van that was actually free. Okay. Because let me tell you, they weaponize the amount of money van costs against like local.
You would have to start from scratch, unfortunately, but it would be building the infrastructure for the future, right? So the initial volunteers that we would probably have our own app, and they'll be going door to door. You said IDs. I remember I listened back to the video, and you talking about IDs, and you could tell, like, I guess which way did they vote in the past, and get all that information. And over time, it will build up, and we'll definitely have a better infrastructure. What do you think about this? This is something I think you would appreciate this. I was thinking mutual aid. That's part of the Afro Socialist kind of, and I'm going to ask you about the Afro Socialist Club that you mentioned in our last interview and ask how that's going. But in the same vein of the Black Panthers, etc., who did mutual aid, I was wondering, what if we had a candidate that had their volunteers and who themselves, they knocked on doors, and instead of necessarily, you might still have your pamphlets and you'd be ready to talk about your own campaign, but the first thing you do, you're not going to do and say, hi, I'm with Kinverly Dicupe's campaign, and I want to ask you, how can I help you? What is something that you need right now? Do you need furniture moved to the front of the house that you meant to throw away? Do you have yard work that you need help with that you might have been putting off, and you just need, you couldn't, you have your handicap, and is there anything that, we don't have a lot of money, and maybe you need $10. Do you need that? So, a little something. What do you think about that? Literally campaigning with mutual aid in mind.
I think that's hard to do because you have a set level of like volunteers, resources. Gotcha. And you don't really want to divert too much because you need those resources in order to win. I think a lot of this works better when you're already elected. And because I've done it with other politicians where we go around their district asking people, what is it that you need? I'm here. This is how you contact me. It's very easy because a lot of people.
They do that already right now. You said they do that.
Yeah, Cynthia Mendes. I was canvassing with her actually at the beginning of the summertime, just going, through her district, seeing what people needed, and letting them know that they could contact their,
Okay.
elected, that was possible, and that this person would respond and actually try to find, resources, because as an elected, you do have a lot of connections and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I think that is important. I would say with mutual aid, I don't know too much mutual aid that's actually mutual aid. A lot of it is just charity, except that we're just saying that it's mutual aid. So I think we do
What's the
got to be
difference
careful.
between? I might that might be something I can learn right now. What's the difference between mutual aid and charity?
I mean, charity is just like, you are giving something, a resource or whatever. You're not expecting anything back. But mutual aid is that
Mm-hmm.
you're giving and that person is giving. Like, the connection isn't just going one way. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, okay, okay. Interesting.
I don't know. I've been really liking things like community fridges where anyone can
Mhm.
stock and anyone can get. Those types of things I think are very important. Community gardens, where the community itself is looking after the food and everything's free so you can grab it.
Mm.
Um, those types of things I feel um, can be actually mutually beneficial to everyone where who's in the community where it exists. And that's one of the few things that here in Rhode Island, throughout the pandemic, we've gotten a lot of those types of things. The community garden's doing pretty well, fridges in different parts of the
Mm.
state, quite a
Awesome.
few of
Okay.
them.
Okay. Okay.
So I think, yeah, I just you got to be careful, because I just think that charity is like not the answer to people's problems. Like, I think
Mm.
I've told people this, and I think you need to, especially within an organization, you need to build like a foundation, and I guess systems of support for your members and things of that sort. But you can't get too sidetracked in providing charity, because as like an organization or a few individuals, you will never have enough resources to
Mhm.
actually deal with the need that's out there.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? If you want to cure the
Mhm.
problem, this is an organizing problem. It's a political problem, actually. And
Mhm.
only organization is going to be able to do it. So I think, you should provide aid that allows people to do what is necessary to organize,
Okay. Okay.
but not just like charity the way a church would. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Okay. That's interesting way to definitely put that. You gave me some food to chew on when it comes to this idea. Like I have a vision for literally what the Black Panthers did, which is something that people will say you need the resources to do it, and they had the
Hmm.
resources. You need people power, and they got the people power. They
And you
were
also need time. You really can't do this in an
yeah,
election cycle.
no,
This is
that's
like
the thing.
years
Yeah,
project.
because I even talked to somebody that's running for the Senate, and they said you're trying to do too much, right? And I said, well, there's a plan to do this in phases. So I don't plan to do all this cycle, but we have like 3 phases that we want to go in. And that's why I
Yeah.
said then, like literally the first people that is participating in the gauntlet and they're helping, they're the ones that I would say have the most integrity because they're seeing the vision, but they're not necessarily benefiting from it right now. So think of it like Justice Democrats when they first started. Like nobody knew who they were. They had, like 30 different candidates and they were trying all these different things. And then it
People are
wasn't
laughing
until
at them like, "Oh, you guys are not going to win one primary."
exactly and literally. And it wasn't until they changed their strategy. And that's something that I'm working on. We got to change strategy. We got to add this, take away that. And they said, okay, let's focus all in on this one person in Bronx. And when she won, that's when the whole thing blew up. And now if you get a Justice Democrat endorsement, literally in 48 hours, you're raising $100,000, right? So, but the people who are helping out with People's Gauntlet right now, I think they have so much integrity because they see the vision and they see, okay, we're going to take a chance and we're going to participate, even though I'm putting myself on Front Street. I want to help this thing build. And then also about Van, when we implement that, the first
Yeah.
person implemented is not going to necessarily benefit because they're now getting the information. So it won't be till like maybe the next cycle or the next cycle that you have enough data to now is the progressives is our own that we could truly strategize around it. So Yeah,
Yeah,
we're definitely,
critical infrastructure.
but you got to start somewhere. All right, so Kimberly, thank you so much for coming on the show. The last thing I want to ask you is about that Afro Socialist chapter. I want to know how's it going. And I know last time I talked to you, you were building that up. I think you had like 20 members, and I'm just curious how that is going.
Yeah, so I'm not one of the co-chairs anymore of AfroSoc. But I'm still very active with AfroSoc. We're doing well. We definitely have, you know, I think like 60, 70 members now.
Wow, nice.
Um,
And you do like
and
political education? That's what you mainly do, or do you do community service, mutual aid?
so actually, we've been doing a lot of socials, but we've been in like a reading group and things of that sort. But we've been thinking about, which way are we the most like helpful to the community and in like helping build, a working class, people of color movement that, like this. I feel like the space is very special to me because you don't see a lot of working class people of color in politics. Um, and when you do, oftentimes they're like co-opted, meaning like they've been run through like the Ivies and everything else to the point where their roots are real far behind them.
Gotcha.
But with this group, just a ton of working class people who are people of color and are on the left, and I think that builds a different environment. There's definitely like less sensitivity, I think, and dealing. I feel like within AfroSoc, there's people are much better at dealing with like anger and these types of feelings that come up than what I've seen within most left spaces, where I feel like people are afraid of anger, of other people's anger, especially if it's coming from a person of color, and don't really know how to like handle anger and start the whole, the tone policing thing.
Yeah.
Um, but I think what we're really thinking about is how do we organize? What best way can we organize to actually, play our part in the movement? Because we don't think we're the movement. We think we're, a part of the movement, and we want to do our part to make sure that people live better lives, especially people of color who are always at the bottom of every like tragedy.
100%. When is your race? When is the election time?
So my primary is going to be happening in September. They haven't come out with a specific date yet. And then the general, it's like November 8th or something around that.
Okay, great. So you're perfect. You're building up your infrastructure. You're working on your website, working on getting volunteers. Where are you at right now in this space? So that I'm sure I'm going to interview you again. We could get an update on that.
So my
You have any
Absolute is going to
campaign
be opening up
manager or
soon.
anything like that? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think I'm going to manage my own campaign for the most part, but I do have a team. Just got my treasurer together, drafting up my logo. I really want a special logo that like just is bold. So we'll see. But I have an amazing team of like really great artists and just like, people within the movement here in Rhode Island, and even other electeds who are, giving me advice. Strong progressives who I actually trust, not, people who are progressives.
Yeah, gotcha.
So we're going. It's just started, but I'm facing also being redistricted out of my race. I live
Oh
in public
wow.
housing, and they've specifically cut out my public housing out of my district so that I'd have to run against another progressive. So I'm like fighting that right now. But if we have to move to this old woman's district to defeat her, that's what we're gonna do.
All right. I love that fight. Kinverly Dicupe, much love to you, and I look forward to getting an update with their campaign. You're saying all the right things that I know, me and my audience loves to hear. I would love to hear somebody like
The
that
podcast
going into the
audience,
house.
the
Right?
grifter, the grifter left. Have you
Hey,
heard that?
yeah, I've heard that there's so many names that I personally don't like that language, and it makes it hard for us to come together when there's something like a force to vote, when there's something like a March for Medicare for All that I went to the one in New Jersey. When there's good initiatives that, I'm with you. We got to try something. There's people saying, hey, if we force the vote, we're going to, like exactly what you said earlier. We got to try something. You know what? The opposite has been going on. They say if you force the vote, then it's going to prolong the movement. Well, it's already been prolonged. Like, we've never had a vote for Medicare for all on the House floor, period. So what if we force the vote? We're not going to have
it's just so dumb, the calculation.
Yeah. So I love the way you're talking, and I think a lot of people are cynical about, can a person talk like that running for the House and win? And then when you win, can you keep that energy? So I'm optimistic. I'm going to be an eternal optimist, even though I know a lot of people have given up on electoral politics. But I think that all we need is that one person to show that, so somebody can get in there and do that, be the Marjorie Taylor Greene of the left.
Well, and I ain't gonna be crazy like that. Like, we're gonna be actually fighting.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's exactly. I hope people get what I'm trying to say, because people are going to literally say, "Oh, you want a crazy person?" No, I'm talking about somebody that is going to fight. And one thing I would also like to see, if you do get in office, is come back on independent media. That's why, matter of fact, as we close, I'm going to show this last thing. This is something I like to show real quick. So this is the graphic that I was talking about: Circle of Left Synergy, and I'll call it For Real Change. And it has the grassroots, left politics, and indie media. And it has arrows going to both sides, because we need each other. So if you are you're on the left electoral politics side, if you get elected into office, we need you to be able to go on independent media, because that's how you go to the people with your fight. Let's say in Rhode Island, there's a bill that's about to come up. Now, if you build a relationship with independent media, I could totally see you fitting in with my people on the Revolutionary Blackout Network, formerly the Fred Hampton Leftists, because you remind me so much. You remind me so much of them. But I totally understand them being cynical about electoral politics. But all we need, I believe, if we just have one person in there fighting the way we want an electoral politician to fight, it could spark a little flame, and then we get another, and then we get another. So
you can't be afraid. I mean, listen, politics is, running now, and also thinking about running, the level of fear that you feel inside of you, and what that can make you become. It can make you become a very calculated person, right? Because you're thinking about, like, I don't want to be attacked. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to lose support. If I lose support, what's going to happen? That level of fear can really bring you to become the type of person that you don't want to be.
Yeah, 100%. Kinverly, man, I feel like we could talk for another hour or so, but I'm not going to keep you. Thank you so much. Look forward to having you on again. And stay on. But I'm going to say bye to everybody in the on the stream. Much love to y'all, and keep up the fight. See y'all next time.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye, guys.
Tell them one more time where they can find you, please.
You can find me on Twitter, K Dicupe, and Instagram, which is my name that you see here, with a dot between the R and the L. And I also am on Facebook, but I hardly use that, so don't go there.
All right. Much love to you, and I look forward to seeing the evolution of your campaign and your fight. All right.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, guys.
See you later.